Hey guys, J-Man here. Welcome to my video. Last week, the Kings of Breakdown Crystal Lake finally dropped their 5th album on the Japanese market. Sadly, the Western world will have to wait until February next year for an official release. The singles leading up to this album, Apollo, Aeon and The Circle, gathered the attention of metalcore fans all around the world and created huge expectations. Especially the Apollo B-side Machina and the latest music video Aeon pointed towards a much heavier release, especially since the last album True North explored a more melodic and anthemic direction. Now you may wonder if those predictions turn out to be right and if it's worth to wait until the Western release. We will find this out together right after the intro. As always, we will start with the general release informations. HELIX was released on the 28th of November by Crystal Lake's Japanese home label Cube Records. The base album features 10 tracks and 2 short interludes with a total playtime of 40.5 minutes. The tracklist features the previously mentioned singles Apollo and Aeon. Interestingly enough, the melodic The Circle featuring Coltrane's Masato was left out and replaced with the B-side Lost in Forever instead. HELIX marks the departure from their previous North American distribution partner Artery Recordings. Instead, Crystal Lake signed a contract with the renowned music label Sharptone Records, which has a great reputation in the modern heavy scene through successful artists like Bleeding Through, Being as an Ocean, Amour, Novelists, Rise of the North Star, or We Came as Romance. Sharptone Records will release the album on the 8th of February 2019. I couldn't find any update on the European situation, so I would assume that they also took over the duties from JPO Records. With this out of the way, we can finally talk about the music. The album starts with the short name-giving interlude HELIX, which is basically some kind of robotic voice which is setting up the theme for the opener Aeon. And oh boy, Aeon is an absolute monster. It definitely overtakes tracks like 6 Feet Under or Machina as the heaviest track in their whole discography. Ryo's growls reach a whole new level of insanity and Gaku unleashes such a disgusting drumming inferno. In terms of songwriting, the track is basically split into 3 different sections. It starts with a mix between heavy metalcore, some Hatebreed inspired groove, and a few blast beat outbreaks. The fast sections finally show some of those black metal influences, which I was wondering about for quite a while. Who follows Crystal Lake's live shows will certainly have noticed that Ryo was rocking shirts of bands like Behemoth, Emperor, or Burzum on many live shows. Those influences can be seen in these really hateful and intense screams, which are a new vocal technique which Ryo never used before. The second part consists of the guest vocals by AJ from Issues, which fit in flawlessly with this really nasty guitar groove. In the last part, Ryo performs some really devilish, inhuman, low growls, which lead to the final breakdown. This break seems rather unconventional and it will certainly cause many confused faces in the mosh pits during their live shows. All in all, Aeon dropped on the same day as the album and it still leaves me speechless. It's a really mind-blowing experience. After such a phenomenal opening, you would think that there is no way that Crystal Lake can hold this very high level. And yes, while Agony lacks this shocking factor of Aeon, I still think that it's a very strong point of this album. The track features a mix of modern metalcore, some ambiente guitar play, and a very anthemic chorus, which could sound-wise totally fit on the first Ryo era album design. The highlight of this track is probably this heavy breakdown with those overwhelming growls, but I also quite enjoyed the melodic vocals during the outro. During the last European tour, Crystal Lake already announced in the interviews that this album would have way more nu metal influences, and Plus 81 is definitely the first track where those really shine through. Bouncy grooves and rap-inspired vocals follow the path of a track like Hatred from the last album True North, even though it doesn't quite reach the same level of aggression. Sure, this formula doesn't offer anything new to the music scene, but it still works. The most memorable moment on this track is probably the funky bass line in the middle of the song, which adds a really nice and interesting touch to the songwriting. With Lost in Forever, we got the B-side from the mentioned The Circle single, which also features a guest appearance by Daniel and Tyler from Gideon. This track doesn't take any risks at all with this rather familiar sounding up-tempo melodic hardcore sound. Sound-wise, I would almost guess that this is a leftover from the True North songwriting session. I definitely enjoyed Lost in Forever, but overall it falls a little bit flat compared to the rest of the album. Outgrow continues with a calmer sound. The experimental first rap verse adds an element of surprise, and the heavy sections are also on point. And of course, especially the breakdown stands out the most again. The chorus itself follows this more anthemic character of the previous track Agony, and it was certainly crafted for the live shows to sing along with the crowd. Ritual is another short interlude which transitions into the interesting Hail to the Fire. At first I wasn't sure what to think about this track, but after a few rotations it grew into one of my favorites. The guitar riff certainly took some inspiration from bands like Sepultura, Soulfly or Ectomorph. The vocals are pretty crazy and add a certain tribal or primeval feeling to the song. Also, the heaviness level of this track is definitely improved compared to the previous tracks. Devil Cry stays in this more melodic territory and also sprinkles in some rap and electronica influences. The dramatic chorus with its layered vocals adds a certain while she sleeps vibe, and this isn't really a bad thing at all. This British metalcore band is one of my favorite artists. Overall, this track is definitely a grower, as it took me quite a while to enjoy it as much as I do enjoy it now. With Just Confusing, we got this ultimate counterpart to Aeon. With this strong electronica presence, rap vocals and a non-existing guitar distortion, I would almost categorize this track in the pop category. And you know what? I totally enjoyed this track, especially with this underlying melancholy and bittersweet catchiness. It just shows how diverse Crystal Lake have become over all those years. Next in line is the first single Apollo, and I think there isn't much left to say about it. The chorus has stuck to my ear ever since I did my first reaction to it last year. If you haven't seen the video yet, you can check it out in this info box there. I stopped counting how many times I listened to this track since its release. It's just this ultimate clash between Crystal Lake's heavy and melodic side. And yeah, it probably is the best track at the moment to introduce this band to someone who never heard this band before. And also, of course, never forget Rio's disturbed and Korn vocal impression in the middle of the track. Some may call it a meme, but it just adds to the intensity of this track. The album ends rather unspectacular with the dreamy Sanctuary. Certainly not a bad track, but as a studio recording, it kinda lacks the emotional impact of a live show. It's basically the same what I said about Outgrow. I truly believe this sound works best in combination between the band on stage and the live audience. After talking about every track, it is finally time to come to a conclusion. The first thing you will notice is probably that many tracks on this record feel very impactful right from the start, while the previously album True North certainly needed some room to grow. Especially songs like Aeon, Plus 81, Hail to the Fire or Apollo come straight to the point and I didn't get tired of them yet. Sure, some tracks like Devil Cry or the experimental Just Confusing feel a little bit underwhelming right at the start, but they become much stronger after a few more rotations. It's really nice to also have some tracks which keep developing and guarantee the longevity of this album. In terms of heaviness, this is definitely a step up compared to the previous long player, even though it doesn't quite reach this level of brutality which you may have expected from listening to the singers. Sure, there are many melodic and mellow moments and a few anthemic tracks, but especially the drum work and Rio's improved harsh vocal techniques create some of the most intense moments in the whole discography. As always, the guitar work doesn't leave anything to be desired. It really excels in both cornerstones of their sound, the playful and ambienty passages, as well as the sick breakdowns. Those have always been a trademark since the reincarnation of the band in their new lineup, and it certainly won't let down any long-term fans. For all those reasons, I rate HELIX with a very strong 9 out of 10, which makes it a strong contender for my best albums of the year list. Yes, it isn't perfect, and a few songs may only work in the live environment, but overall each member plays to its strength and the whole album just celebrates the essence of their sound. At the same time, it also explores new extremes in both directions, from this brutal deathcore-esque Massacre Aeon to the chill and poppy Just Confusing. HELIX should be a pleasure for fans of modern metalcore bands like Architects, The Ghost Inside, While She Sleeps, as well as the nostalgic mid-2000s nu metal sound. Crystal Lake are taking the world by storm, and I really hope that their new contract with Sharptone Records will them help to progress further into the international scene. With this album, they certainly set a new standard for this whole genre. This being said, we already came to the end of this review. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave me a like and make sure to discuss the album in the comment section. Also make sure to press the subscribe button and hit the notification bell for more upcoming content. As always, for more news about Japanese music, you can follow me on my social media like Twitter, Facebook or Reddit. We also have a great Discord server where you can join other Japanese music nerds. If you want to go the extra mile, you can also support me on Patreon. At this point, I once again want to thank my Patreon pet, who always supports me, even though I may not be the most reliable content creator. And all that's left to say, thanks again for watching and have a great day.